Let's talk about one of the things we've learned from SUNO over the past few weeks concerning tempo of songs. Now, SUNO, because of the way that it creates music using AI, having learned about music by listening to as much as it has been allowed to, it found that tempo isn't always something that's super strict. Music has this ebb and flow. In fact, we have this issue now with a lot of the songs that it creates. It's ebbing and flowing, as music should, but they made a video that's talking about a solution to this and how to get around that so that you can lock the tempo down. And I really had this reaction to that video that Suno published on YouTube because I don't believe we should be necessarily just taking all of the tempo variations out of a song and making them into a very strict tempo. It can do that. In fact, let me show you how this works. I just made this song just a few minutes ago. It's in a folk style. And so I think that it's a good example of this. If you look at the tempo at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it says it's 76, but watch it as I play for a second.
All invisible men. Can't you hear me? Let me in.
Okay, what they said was before you export the stems to work on them in a workstation, what you should do is switch this to manual and then set a tempo, and then the song will do a time compression expansion across the entire thing before it exports the stems, essentially removing all of that natural ebb and flow that came from training Suno on, I'm assuming, decades and decades of music, right? And all of that came with it. And now they just said, you know what? You should remove that before you export your stems. You can, you don't have to though. And when you're adding other things in Suno Studio, like other parts, it will do its best to match the tempo. I've had a number of issues with tempo overall, but I want to propose a completely different way of looking at this because I think it's important to talk about the songs in terms of that give and take of the tempo, the little bit of fluctuation as it plays through, because that is music. When people perform music, in a lot of situations, the music can speed up and slow down. That's okay. Obviously, some artists, when they perform, use like a backing track that locks in the tempo, and then you can't do that. But not everybody plays in that type of situation. I think some of the best music has that give and take. Second, if you just change this to manual BPM, it actually does a process to the sound and degrades the overall quality of what you're getting here. That's the other big part to that. I've done it on a number of songs, and each one at various times I've been able to hear little artifacts of that time compression expansion, especially after the stems are extracted, because things like the vocal may have a bunch of vocal textures to create the vocal, and it'll have, like reverb parts on it. And anytime you're doing a time compression expansion with complex signals like that, it ends up degrading the signal a little bit. So what are our options? If I want to take this song and bring it into a workstation and use it in there, but I know that the tempo is all over the place, what's the best solution? Well, I use Logic Pro primarily for mine, so I'm going to demonstrate it in that, but almost all of the workstations out there have some version of tempo analysis and adjusting to the tempo that you get. If you're working in a workstation that doesn't have that, then you'll want to manually change the BPM and have Suno across the board take care of the tempo. But if not, let's let a workstation that maybe has better time compression expansion and adjustments handle that instead. So I'm going to leave the tempo on the followed track, and it's going to fluctuate. So it'll fluctuate all over the place. I'm going to export this as a multi-track. And once it's done, then I will import into Logic and show you what that looks like. You'll be able to see the full tempo map. You'll be able to look at what it's doing. And I'll actually show you how to change the tempo inside Logic if we want to and use that as an option. But once we have a detailed tempo map, then we can actually have other loops or instruments play to that tempo, and it actually works out pretty well. This is going to take a second, as it always does. It's downloading right now. So let's go into Logic right off the bat. One of the things we do in Logic before we import this is to set in our transport away from the keep project tempo to the adapt project tempo. That means that now whatever gets imported with this orange line in our tempo global track, it will show us what that is analyzed as being. So I'm going to open up this download we just got, and I'm going to bring it into Logic. I'm going to say create new tracks, and then I'm going to also check this box at the bottom that says all selected files are stems from one project. That means instead of trying to analyze every individual stem for its tempo, it's going to do an overall analysis, and that'll be what goes into our global track. So now you can see, look at this tempo as it's analyzed. We actually have one pretty significant drop down here. Let's listen to this for just a second. Perhaps before I do that, I'm going to select all of these and just gain stage them down so that, because that means SUNO does everything loud.
So turn your televisions off.
So it didn't even fully know what to do with that little section. We could go through and edit that if we wanted to, but I just wanted to show you what it gave us right off the bat. So let's start at the very beginning, put the click track on so we can hear it.
I'm calling all invisible men. Can't you hear me? Let me in. We just gotta go and change the world. Let's take the place from the beautiful girls. They had their shot, now it's our turn. It's our time to burn.
Okay, great. If I want this to follow now any tempo changes I make, then I've got to come over to my left side where there's my region properties. It says 8 of them are selected, perfect. And then down below it says flex and follow. I'm going to turn that on because now it's going to do this analysis and have those be in conjunction with each other. And look at this, I can flatten my tempo and drag it down.
I'm calling all invisible men. Can't you hear me? Let me in.
Let's go back to here in SUNO and go to 119 for a fixed tempo. Although it's going to do an analysis. It's a little bit different analysis. This might actually speed it up at first, and then I'll have it if it does.
I'm calling all.
Yeah, so SUNO is thinking it's one thing. We are going to go to 55, 59.
I'm calling all invisible men. Can't you hear me? Let me in. We just gotta go and
let's listen back to the Logic version of the same thing.
I'm calling all invisible men. Can't you hear me? Let me in.
Very close in many ways. But what I like about this is that I have the ability not only to change the tempo, just like we did in SUNO, but we can use various tools here to actually increase the tempo if we want to. We could have that do it like a ramp up to it, which we can't draw a tempo map in SUNO itself.
All the people you can see, now is your time, now is your time, it's our time to shine. All the people you can see, now is your time, now is your time, it's our time to shine. So turn your televisions off.
It still has an issue with that one place which we may need to fine tune before we were to ever make such changes like that. But we now have the ability to do that with a much more comprehensive set of tools. So now perhaps I want to bring in some other loop or something. Let's first set this to keep so that we don't mess anything up. And let's try a tambourine on bar 3.
Woman, can't you hear?
And we'll set that one to, well, it says right there, we have it set to follow tempo. That's good. And we can loop it out.
Woman, can't you hear me? Let me in. We just gotta go and change the world. Let's take the place from the beautiful girls. They had their shot, now it's our turn. It's our time to burn.
And there we go. So now other things, even though the tempo is constantly changing, that's going to just stay right with it because we've set this up in a way that the tempo variances of the SUNO song can be set with all of the other elements that we may want to drop on here. Okay, so SUNO, when they said when you export your stems and you should set it all to a constant tempo, that's not always true. There are times when you're using other software that can handle it that you want to keep the nuances, that you want to keep the variances, and that you can work with those without having to compromise the audio quality even further than we already have by using this in the first place. Okay, hope this was helpful. Talk to you later.